wanted to make it into, never mind.
We are now recording.
All right, thank you. So I want to welcome everyone to the history conference, history commission. Where are we? We're at the Fairfax County History Commission. Welcome to our meeting for September 1st. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And in order to do that, I have to read something without my reading glasses. So we'll bear with me here. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically, the History Commission needs to make certain findings for the record to evidence our compliance with all applicable laws. These motions address this compliance. First, I'm going to conduct a roll call so that each board member participating in this meeting may state their name and location. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. I'm going to click over. Mary Lipsey.
Mary Lipsey in Braddock District.
Gretchen Bulova.
Gretchen Bulova in Braddock District.
Carol Herrick.
Carol Herrick, McLean, Drainesville District.
Subi Mehdi.
Subi Mehdi, McLean, Drainesville District.
Elise Ruff Murray.
Elise Murray, Vienna.
Barbara Naif.
Barbara Naif, Reston.
Ann Stuntz.
Ann Stuntz, Hunter Mill District.
Steve Sherman.
Steve Sherman in Franconia, Lee District.
Phyllis Walker Ford.
Phyllis Walker Ford, Clifton, Lee District.
Barbara Peters, I'm pretty sure is overseas at the moment, has an excused absence.
Oh.
Unless Barbara is actually there and I'm mistaken the dates.
She's sailing in tonight.
Yes. Ann Barnes. Ann, are you there?
Good to see her.
Come back. We'll come back to Ann. Sally Lyons.
Sally Lyons in Colchester, Mount Vernon District.
Okay. Tammy Manorino.
Tammy Manorino, I'm in Stanton, representing Mount Vernon District.
Okay. Sue Kovacs-Schumann.
Sue Kovacs-Schumann, Mantua, Providence District.
Lynn Garvey Hodge.
Lynn Garvey Hodge, Springfield District.
Esther McCullough.
Esther McCullough, Sully District.
Okay. Robert Beach, Bob. Bob, are you with us?
Like it.
David Meyer.
David Meyer, City of Fairfax.
And I didn't call Jordan Tannenbaum. Jordan, are you with us yet? I know he sent me an email saying that he'd be about 10 or 15 minutes late. So we are expecting Jordan. Let me come back to, I think we have, who is Elizabeth Crowell, just doing a quick sound check, Liz.
Liz Kroll, Alexandria.
Chris Barbachek.
Chris Barbachek, Virginia.
Okay. And Megan Lining.
Megan Lining, Fairfax.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, and we're just hoping to hear from Ann, Bob, and Jordan as the evening proceeds. Okay, at this point, I'm going to pass on the virtual gavel to our Vice Chair, Ms. Garvey Hodge, and so that I may be heard to make the appropriate motion. I move that the History Commission certify for the record that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this board.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
abstentions or objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Second, I move that the History Commission certify that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the Commission and the public to physically attend this meeting in person, and the usual procedures cannot be implemented safely or practically. As a result, I further move that the Fairfax County History Commission conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by calling 1-844-621-3956 and entering access code 179-357-3838. I need a second on that.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, we can proceed to the third motion, which is the need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures. Finally, I move that the History Commission certify that the matters on the agenda today relate to COVID-19 emergency itself, are necessary for the continuity in the Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations and discharge of the History Commission's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. And we can move forward.
Put your gavel back, Cheryl.
Thank you. Yes, I'll need to get that back. Otherwise, I'll just be talking to myself.
Cheryl,
Yes.
I just sorry to interrupt. I
Sure.
just wanted to double check. Was Carol Herrick called in the roll call?
She was, and she is here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only people who did not respond were Ann Barnes, Bob Beach, and Jordan Tannenbaum. Bob, I see, has since joined us. Bob, can you just give us a sound check real quick? Robert Beach, can you hear us? Bob? We'll double check that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so Bob has had to call in before, and perhaps Bob, you could try calling in on the line. Because I can see you, but we can't hear you.
Yeah. So, all right. We'll proceed along. Proceed to our minutes. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So move.
All right.
And pay the clerk.
And pay the clerk, yes.
I
Thank
second
you.
the motion.
Okay, we definitely want to include that part. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions or objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. The clerk will be paid and the minutes are approved. I also just want to mention that the timeline for our minutes is a pretty tight timeline. The clerk basically produces the minutes, that first draft, within the first 2 weeks after our meeting rather. And then he releases a draft copy for everybody on the third Wednesday of the month. That's the opportunity beginning that third Wednesday to review the draft minutes and make corrections. Once it's gone to final form, that's really the form that's ready for posting on our website. And it may be that there are mistakes there that you didn't catch during the draft, because and there is a procedure. You can make a motion to amend the drafts during the meeting, to amend the minutes in the course of the meeting. But just try and remember to try and review that during the draft cycle as opposed to after it's final. Otherwise, we kind of wind up doing sort of a death by 1,000 cuts of edits. Treasurer's report, we're going to skip this month because Barbara is not with us. She'll cover the 2 months next month. And we'll just proceed to our unfinished business, which is going to start with Tammy and River Farm.
I really don't have anything to report today, with the exception of just a quick mention that the letter that we voted on during the last meeting is just about out the door. So you all will have seen Elise's forwarding of the ARB's letter. And ours is a restatement, as we agreed last month, it's a restatement of our support for SB 1457. So that's right about to go out the door in time for the September 14th Board of Supervisors meeting. That's it.
Emmy, I only forwarded it to you, Cheryl, and Sally.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everybody got that.
I didn't think everybody would be interested.
So if anyone is interested, I believe I posted it on the share file. And if I haven't, I can. So it's just the ARB letter is very straightforward, though. It just says that they too are in support of this zoning amendment. That we're also, so we're on the same page with the ARB. Any other questions or discussions, concerns? So yeah, we have previously voted on this, so it's just an update. Soapstone Connector, Jordan isn't with us yet. So let me skip over that. Similarly, Sky Chefs. Sue, do you have anything further on Dunn Loring School?
No, because I hate to say nothing to report, but facilities and transportation people did not get back to me, nor did the supervisor's office. They put it over back to the schools, and the school board member said, go ask the others. So I don't have an answer yet. Thank you, though, for asking.
Okay. Historical marker contest, Tammy, do you want to update us on that? Tammy attended the meeting that I could not remember and could not find the information about on the day of the meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a very good meeting. They're still in the defining the contest phase. Some good things that we heard is they're acknowledging that the board matter says up to 9 markers. So I think they are mindful that these 9 markers don't have to happen this year. They talked about that the contest would be hosted on the county website as opposed to the FCPS website, since the contest is open to all students in Fairfax County. So that includes public or private school students, homeschooled students, etc. So they talked about the challenge of public records, of written records of African American stories, and talked about promoting oral histories in this process. And then the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for September 13th from 4 to 5. And, you know, basically what they're looking for from the members of the committee is to try to come up with, I guess I'd call it an elevator pitch for what this contest is, a very quick description of what the contest is. And I haven't heard anything about the curriculum committee and when it might be meeting, but this is going to have to pick up speed pretty soon here, I think, in order to get things out by January.
Did you have anything to add, Mary?
Just that the leaders of each of the committees, which I'm considered on the contest committee, are meeting together. It's in next week. Anyway, so that may begin moving some of these questions we still have in terms of meeting dates, etc.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments about that issue? This is the marker contest that the the Board of Supervisors has created. Okay.
Cheryl, if I may interrupt, I think Bob may be on the line now as a caller. I have a 533 number. Could you state your name, please?
Yeah, Robert Beach.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Denise. And thank you, Bob. Good to hear from you. All right. I'm going to continue on. I'm actually going to flip the order just a little bit here, and I'm going to go back to Tammy and have you talk about Fort Belvoir, because I think that the Fort Belvoir discussion is going to be more targeted than the task force discussion, and it might actually help to inform any discussion that we have about the task force. So I think it might be better to switch the order a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So I was contacted by Supervisor Stork's office just last week, asking questions about the naming of Fort Belvoir in 1935, how the name came about. And through that, I realized that Fort Belvoir is on the list of bases that's being considered for renaming. And I have to admit that I had no awareness that that was taking place. I sort of figured it was, all Confederate generals. So I was a little surprised. It's a little unlike the other names on the list. And the rationale behind it seems to be two reasons, that the Fairfax family who owned and built Belvoir owned enslaved people who worked on the plantation. And then also that Representative Howard W. Smith, who is a congressman starting in 1930, he advocated for the 1935 name change from Fort Humphreys to Fort Belvoir. And he was a staunch opponent of civil rights. And so other words have been used to describe him, white supremacist, other things. And so his connection to the naming is something that they are looking into. And quite frankly, I haven't found too much on there. He was advocating for the reconstruction of Fort Belvoir, but I haven't been able to make a connection between him and FDR, who is the one who issued the order for the renaming. The story that we have heard up to this point from Fort Belvoir historians is that the owner of Gunston Hall was the one who kind of was lobbying FDR for this name change, that he had really kind of clued him into the history of Belvoir and the Fairfax family and the connections to George Washington. So these are the two reasons why they're looking at it. And so while no one has asked us our opinion on this yet, it looks like they may be looking for an opinion from us as we participate in this renaming process. And there, perhaps are some reasons to consider in retaining the name. And because you did have enslaved people who were living and working and built Fort Belvoir, maybe the changing the name away from Fort Belvoir lessens the opportunity to get that story out there. There are also some other really interesting stories in the history of Fort Belvoir that perhaps have not been told as widely as they could have been. And this ties into the Quakers coming in and working together during the Civil War on, I think, the only interracial home guard that existed during the time period, and they fought for each other's farms. The Free Blacks and the Quakers in the community fought for each other's farms. And then you also have the Woodlawn Crossings community that was displaced by the expansion of Fort Belvoir in the 1940s. And so perhaps we might want to, as we're participating in this process, consider advocating for, instead of spending the money on renaming, perhaps spending the money on reinterpreting the Belvoir site, which is sorely out of date, and then also finding ways to tell these stories, which really kind of dovetails with our African American History Initiative. So anyway, I'm just sort of getting the ball rolling on thinking on how we approach that, and perhaps it's not an opposition to the renaming, but a, hey, have you thought about doing this different thing instead of renaming? So.
And just to provide a little bit more context, so Supervisor Stork contacted Tammy and asked for her input with regard to the history of the name just yesterday, and that's why this is kind of last minute, but I apologize, but it literally came across my email as Tammy and I were talking about this over the phone. It popped up. The commission has been invited to attend a community, get what the phrase is that they use, a community meeting, community engagement and dialogue with the base naming commission at Fort Belvoir on September 23rd. There's also like a preliminary meeting on the 7th. And so, you know, we haven't been tasked by the Board of Supervisors to do this, at least not as of yet. But we have been invited to make, you know, to engage in this dialogue about the name of Fort Belvoir. So one of the things to, you know, for the commission to decide tonight is whether or not we should follow up on that invitation and participate in this process. And if we do, whether or not we should offer an opinion regarding the renaming. And Tammy just outlined one particular perspective on that. And so that's sort of what's up for discussion at the moment. Barbara.
Thank you. Tammy and I talked about this. Tammy called me with my old C&I hat to see what I thought. So I learned about it on Friday, and we had a long discussion, and I applaud the work she's already done. And my perspective is, yes, we should participate because this is local history. And if Tammy's free, she should certainly be one of the commissioners that's there. So I don't think we should decide yet, you know, make a stand. It should be one way or the other, but the idea of the local history of the aspects of it, I think, are important. And I won't go into my reasons at this point because that's for another time, but I'm very much, I think we should definitely be involved in it.
Okay.
I would like to advocate in favor of retaining the name because the Fairfax family were so intimately involved with the Washington family. They were intermarried with the Washington family. Washington spent a lot of his time at Belvoir. The preservation of the ruins and the recognition of the importance of this site is directly tied to the maintenance of the name of the base as Fort Belvoir. And to be perfectly honest, the ruins are not being very well maintained right now. So anything that would bring attention to the fact that this is a really, really important historic site. And the base, no, I think it has very little to do, the naming of it, with slave history and a lot more with historical recognition.
It's National Register too, isn't it?
Yes.
There are two National Register sites, the Belvoir ruins and also the Woodlawn Cultural.
Oh, right.
So there's two on there. I have a whole list of, there's also Virginia landmarks and our local inventory sites.
Yeah, there's also some agricultural ditches that George Washington had built that are part of also on the National Register. So yeah, so the site is, you know, has a lot of history as Tammy described.
Tammy, if you haven't done so already, you might want to reach out to Patrick O'Neill. He formerly was a historian at Fort Belvoir, and when Patrick does things, he does it with great gusto. And I know that if there's information on naming and things like that, if the information was there to find, he would have found it. So I can give you his contact information.
Yes, that's an excellent suggestion. And I did, Sally and I put our heads together and she gave me Patrick O'Neill's phone number over the weekend, and I was able to talk to him. And the connection with this Howard Smith, it was news to him as well. He had never heard that angle of things before. So so he's going to see if he can find anything more out of that. But yeah, so it's kind of news to a lot of us, and so we're trying to track down the details. I emailed the source of that story. He's a lieutenant or a brigadier general, retired brigadier general, who's on the renaming commission, and he hasn't gotten back to me, but I would love to know, you know, just point me in the right direction to find the detailed sources. So we'll be continuing to try to track that down. And one other thing that I didn't mention is before it was Camp Humphreys, the original name of the site was Camp Belvoir. So it went from Camp Belvoir to Camp Humphreys, Fort Humphreys, and then Fort Belvoir. So this would be, the 1937 was a renaming back to Belvoir. So.
Do we have a sense of, because Tammy, you mentioned trading the cost of renaming to making the other side of the story more known. Do we have a sense of how much renaming like this would cost?
I'm guessing millions, because you think about you know, it's not just signage and materials and all of that, but you've also got the elementary schools are associated, you know, those are the Fort Belvoir Elementary sits there. There's just, it's a very large base with two sides of it, you know, across Route 1. And I imagine it's millions.
And
It's
do
a
we
stationary, have to be changed. It's,
yeah. Sorry, I'm asking, showing my ignorance here. Do we have set criteria about that guides us on renaming things? I'm assuming we do.
Not specifically on renaming.
Go ahead.
There is, you know, the commission has adopted the guidelines for the National Trust for on monuments.
Right.
So go ahead, Barbara.
No, I'm just agreeing and to say that what this is a place name, and so and the county is beginning to tackle this with their name task force. So this is all new. But if I could add that the gentleman that Tammy's referencing is the author of the book Robert E. Lee and Me, and he's chair of the history department at West Point, and is a Southerner born that suddenly discovered how awful this is and is, you know, very gung-ho, and that's his perspective. And also people have to remember that the Belvoir story is 18th century, and it was in ruins by 1780. So it's one of the challenges we have at this time is putting the current mindset and transferring that to another time. So in other words, it's not a cut and dry issue. So I would agree with Sally. It's the historical aspect that's important. So I've said more than enough. I'll be quiet, but it's interesting who this gentleman is and his, you know, his modus operandi at this time. So
I was just going to say, I think it sounds like it's squarely in our bailiwick. If we've got ability to be part of it, we should.
So I was going to add to that, that I think that not only should we be part of it, but we should take a stand on it.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's useless to just sit in a table and I don't know. I'm new to this, but
I think we have opinions at this table, and we won't. I've never seen Tammy sit anywhere.
Yeah, not being asked sometimes doesn't stop me.
Bravo.
That's good. It's a tricky one.
Yeah. We don't. Go ahead, Lynn. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say this is a tricky situation.
It definitely is, and we can certainly understand the motivation for renaming, and it's you know, it's understandable. But is it the right thing to do? That's, you know, that's the trick. Is this the best way to satisfy those motives?
yeah, but if we don't have overarching general principles to guide us on renaming, I don't know where we start. I mean, this all came out, I suppose, from the BLM movement. I suppose to show equity in our historical narrative and historical documentation. And anyway, I think I'm trying to voice an opinion now. Maybe it's just too premature.
Well, and I will say, in terms of guiding documents, we did in our CNI report, you know, list some of the position papers that had been published by organizations, and Cheryl referenced, like, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, you know, issued their advice. Now they're talking about Confederate monuments, which is different from what we're talking about here. But their advice says, you know, we differentiate symbolic monuments from historic sites that have developed over time. Some of them are places built by African Americans held in bondage. These historic sites today must serve as critical places to explore the legacies of slavery and discrimination. and as sites of conscience where an honest exploration of our shared history and reconciliation can occur. And even though they're talking about monuments there, I think that that argument can be made for Belvoir. It is a site where, enslaved people were held, and they have a history there as well. So.
And we also included Preservation Virginia and the American Association of State and Local Histories quotes. And if you go back to the Confederate names inventory, we were very specific in identifying those names that we provided to the supervisors for consideration. And Fort Belvoir is a historic place, doesn't fit in those guidelines. And it's if you start removing names of places where enslaved people worked and lived, there are many, I know this is federal, but there are many places throughout the county that, what do we do with them? Because it was part of to tell the stories more fully, I think is a better service to those that were enslaved and nameless at this time than to totally erase it and say, well, it wasn't here.
Tammy, this is Mary. What I'm understanding is that they are just asking you help in research, not in expressing an opinion. Am I wrong about that?
So the inquiry that came last week was a request for information about the 1935 renaming.
Okay.
And at this point, we haven't tracked down. Chris Barbashek was also asked in the Virginia room to find out information about that. And again, we have sort of parallel things going on. We have that Smith was advocating for the Reconstruction, at the same time as this renaming was happening, but we haven't been able to, at least to my knowledge, we haven't been able to draw a line between Smith and FDR. And, the general who came up with this must have been able to do that. I firmly believe he's a West Point historian. He must have been able to draw that line, but I haven't been able to see that documentation yet.
I wonder whether this is just one of many people who were advocating for that name changed, and he happened to have gotten recorded in that regard, because if the head of Gunston Hall was proposing it, there were probably other important historical figures who were proposing it too.
So that was the specific request that we were given, and then Cheryl got this invitation for us to participate, and we don't really have a definition of the capacity in which we were asked to participate. So we'll have to, I'm gonna give a call to Supervisor Stork's office tomorrow and see if I can kind of tease that out and find out exactly what they're looking for from us.
But we won't meet as a body before those meetings occur, so that's why it's on the agenda for tonight, was to, so that I specifically was invited. I don't know that anybody else has been. I assume they just, looked it up on our website and sort of, and chose the chairperson and issued the invitation to that. Tammy clearly is, been doing this research, and I think that her research is an important contribution to this conversation and should be, so she should definitely be there. The question is whether or not the commission, so far what I'm getting a feeling for is that the commission agrees that we should be there.
Is a motion in order, Cheryl?
For that, yes.
All right, I move that the History Commission participate in these sessions and be represented. And then
I second that motion.
I second.
Yeah, I do too.
Jordan.
Hi.
Jordan.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
No, I did want to recognize that you were here. So thank you for speaking out.
Have I missed the discussion on soapstone?
No, we waited for you.
Thank
we're
you.
waiting. Yeah, we'll circle back to that.
Okay.
I think we need a second, if you all agree.
No, I think we had a second
second.
on that. Yeah, Esther seconded.
That's right.
So the question is open for any further discussion. Okay, hearing none, and Steve or Carol, shout out because I can't see you waving your hand. But Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of having representatives at this community engagement meeting for Fort Belvoir renaming? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye,
opposed?
Herrick.
Thank you. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. And so we will attend those meetings, and we'll see. I don't know if Sally or Anne or anyone else is interested in attending. We have to have a conversation with the folks at Fort Belvoir. At the moment, these are in-person meetings, so there may be a limited number of participants. But certainly Sally or Anne, since you are also Mount Vernon representatives, I can, make inquiries as to if you wish to attend. And then the next question would be, as we've been discussing, whether or not we should make, voice an opinion about the issue of renaming. And so I don't know if we wanted to discuss that further, if anybody wishes to put a motion on the floor about that, or if you feel that we shouldn't make a statement one way or the other, but should do something in between, more neutral.
Madam President,
Yes.
it would seem that more research is needed. And perhaps this can come back at the next meeting after you have attended your meeting, you and Tammy.
I also think that we
what your timeline is, but it is true that more research is sort of underway. I've looked into it a little bit as well, and Chris, if you want to chime in terms of what you've been finding, if you've had an opportunity to do the investigation. Like Tammy, I haven't found a direct connection between Smith and Roosevelt. I looked at a biography that's in the library, and it indicates that in 1935, Smith was part of the Rules Committee, which gave him some power, but he's still a junior member. His he becomes a very powerful figure, but it's really still a couple of years off. He wins an election against opposition from FDR, and that kind of places him in real power, because he's shown that FDR can't shake him loose of his congressional seat. So this renaming is before that, and there's nothing in the biography that I saw that linked him directly to it, but that's just one biography. That's just one source. Chris, did you find anything?
No, Tammy pretty much echoed everything that we found. The only connection I could find is the day that FDR announced his decision to rename it Fort Belvoir. That same day, Smith made an announcement that he was going to pass, I guess, a bill, or he was creating a bill to appropriate $40,000 to rebuild Belvoir to house, I guess, whoever's in charge of Belvoir. But we couldn't figure out if that ever got passed or not. But that was the only connection we could find.
So he did that in 35. I know there was discussions about that in the earlier too.
That's right. He had proposed a bill earlier, and then I don't know what happened with that. So when Belvoir, the ruins were first discovered, he had proposed something, and it never happened. And then that same day when it was announced years later, he tried to get it built again, but obviously that never happened.
Cheryl,
Yes.
I just would like to say that I know Tammy's going to inquire about this, but in the future, if we get other requests from supervisors or something like that, that we ask, are they asking us to make a position or just to do history? Just so that we know where we're going if we get requests like this.
That's a good suggestion. Well, and let me suggest this. I will make a motion not to take a particular position, but let me do this. I move that we raise awareness of the varied history of the Fort Belvoir site for the use of this commission for consideration during their renaming talks.
I second it. That's great. You're threading the needle, Tammy. That's good.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I'm sorry, Tammy, could you repeat that?
Oh, I don't know that I could.
It was long. You lost me. Sorry.
I move that we raise awareness of the varied history of this site for use of the renaming commission during their deliberations.
So isn't this motion, I think Cheryl's question was, do we take a stand? And I
Correct.
think the way I'm hearing your motion is that it is taking a stand already.
It's not taking a stand for or against. It is moving that we raise awareness of this history. So we are putting this in front of them.
Which should be our role. Which should be our role at this point.
Yeah, so this is, we've been invited by an outside entity, not, this isn't, we're not really discussing the request from the Board of Supervisors that Tammy, received. We're discussing this invitation to this outside entity, which is considering renaming. And so the way our discussion is moved has come to this motion that Tammy has suggested, which is, where we don't necessarily take an explicit position, but that we raise awareness of the varied history. If you want, we could go just a step further in terms of, associated with the name of the site, but, for use of commissions, but we don't have to. I think your motion's fine.
Cheryl, this is Barbara again. When I read the request that came, they are referring to community groups. It's as though they want to have. So we come with what we bring to it is what Tammy's identifying. So I think that's very much in character with what we're about.
Okay. Does that meet your concerns, Esther, in terms of research?
Yes, so that if there needs to be some offering of what to do, we're more aware and have more information. So if we do not send any decision or support at this time, but just facts.
Information, not judgment.
Right.
This is Carol. I kind of agree with Esther. I don't think we need to take a position on this right now or take any position. Go to the meeting and see what's going on, and then talk about it at a future meeting, and then take a position.
Okay. All right.
I believe their timeline is that the renaming commission has to deliver their findings in October. So these two meetings may be the end of it for.
We're not taking a position. We're providing historical information, which is what why should we be at the table? That's what we're doing.
Right.
I hear you. So October is when the name change will come about, maybe?
I believe that's when they are supposed to deliver their report. I have that right.
Tammy, do you want to try to restate your motion?
Again?
It didn't get seconded, so I just want you to.
Yes, I seconded it, Cheryl.
Oh, Barbara, you did. Oh, I'm sorry. I just lost track then.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So then we're still in discussion. All right. Any further comments or discussion about the motion? All right. Hearing none, should we then proceed to call the question? All those in favor of attending the Fort Belvoir renaming community engagement meeting to raise awareness of the varied history of this site for use by the naming commission. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right.
Thank you, Tammy and Cheryl, for your research you've already done. That's great.
And Chris.
Yeah.
Yes, Chris was very helpful on that as well.
Chris, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, it's an interesting little bit of history. And actually, you know, Tammy's list of all of the different histories associated with Belvoir is really interesting. And I know I learned from it. You know, I didn't know about a lot of what had gone on there.
Well,
so now we're going to.
One thing that I will mention before we leave this topic is that a lot of people don't know this, but George William Fairfax's mother is very much thought to have been mixed race. And so when the Fairfaxes left this area to go back to England before the Revolutionary War and basically abandoned Belvoir, they went back to straighten out some inheritance problems. And this was partially fueled by the idea that his mother was mixed race, and so that his heritage was being questioned. And so this is one of those complexities that really can bring out discussion of just the situation, you know, during the 18th century and inheritance and all of that, and the different rules internationally. So for instance, he was from the Bahamas, and so that's where he was born. And so the rules were different for intermarrying in the Bahamas during that time. And so, but anyway, so it leads to more learning, sort of some of this history that's there. It's really fascinating.
Right.
Yeah, and George, Lord Fairfax did free his slaves, and what is interesting is that the current Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax, is a direct descendant of the slave that Lord Fairfax freed. And I don't know whether it's 1790 something. Tammy, you probably know the date.
I was going to say Mattie McCoy had helped with that research.
And what was interesting is that 2 years ago, I was at a reception at a home in Fairfax where the current Lord Fairfax had just arrived from England, and Justin was invited to this small social gathering. And I met Justin outside the house, and he said, "Well, I'm going to meet Lord Fairfax in a moment," and he explained this situation to me. So the two of us walked up there, and I knew Lord Fairfax, so I introduced Lord Fairfax to Justin, and Justin said, "Well, I just wanted you to know that your ancestor freed my ancestor," and there was it was a very interesting moment to stand there and watch this interaction between the two of them. Anyway, yeah.
Thanks.
Very cool. Yeah, we aren't going to quite leave this topic entirely because we're going to move to, so although we do not have to, this does not require a motion for this evening. I just wanted, you know, Sue and I are on are appointed to the Confederate Names Task Force, which finally began to meet in August. And it will continue to meet through September through the end of December. By December 2021, this task force is going to make a recommendation on whether to change the names of Lee Highway and Lee Jackson Memorial Highway. And if that change is recommended, the task force will also provide recommendations on proposed alternative names for those highways. And there's also a bit about involving the community and recommending ways that the community can be involved in assessing the impacts of the name change. So, you know, again, because, you know, Sue and I do want to be mindful of the process of the task force and not ignore that process. We're not asking for you to give us any guidance tonight. We just want to let you know that it's finally started. And that we are participating in it. We are the History Commission representatives for that task force, and so we represent your opinion on this, not our own personal opinions. And you know, I know that, you know, as Subi mentioned, we don't have guidelines, you know, that we've discussed about how to deal with this naming issue. We didn't need to make those, and we were not required to during the process where we were investigating the origins of various street names. But now we are going to be asked to potentially make a recommendation, and so, you know, we should be thinking about what we want to do about that. And, you know, Sue and I will report to you on what's going on with the task force, and what
I wanted to add
the
just one
conversation
thing.
is like. Yes, please. Yeah, that's who I was going to just
No,
about to
no.
answer that.
Well, I wanted to say what was unclear to me after the first task force meeting. We don't really know. We didn't introduce each other. So there were 23 people, and I only knew a handful. But we also didn't really look at the history. That's coming later. So we spoke a lot about the outreach, and it's unclear to me when the outreach will be done. I think the outreach, as of right now, is planned after this task force comes up with some names and recommendations, and at that point, they'll take this out to the community. And how that will be done with more than 2,000 civic and HOA associations and other ways is unclear during the pandemic, how they will roll this out, what kind of feedback. Of the task force is interesting, but I think some of you already know that George Albert passed away this weekend, and Evelyn Spain, the Sully District Planning Commissioner, is his wife. So I think a lot of us who knew George even a little bit was very, his contribution to this subject would have been really tremendous. So we'll see if someone else is appointed in his place to represent the Fairfax NAACP.
I didn't know that.
Other than that, it's the first task force I've ever been on where we were interviewed before we were appointed to the task force. And now we don't really know the other members, so we'll kind of figure that out as we go along, I suppose. That's all I wanted to add.
Sure. No, thank you. Yeah, our first meeting was very much about the nuts and bolts of meeting. So it was a meeting about meeting. It's a quick summary of it. We, you know,
That's a good description. And one person basically said, let's just split this up. There's 2 highways and 2 names. And it's like, no, we want to go into this together and get into the grit and figure it out. He just wants to get it done. Oh, well.
I'll remind everybody that these are all available to listen to and watch online. And I did one day have an opportunity to listen to the whole meeting. And you're right, it's like 90% process. But, you know, you're just setting the ground rules. So I guess that makes sense. And somewhere there's a list of everybody who's on the task force and what it is they do for a living. So we can study that maybe.
We've seen that, or some, I mean, yeah.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, that will help. It's your little cheat sheet for meetings. If they're not going to let everyone give 2 sentences about who they are and why they're there.
I think we did do some sort of brief introduction.
Yeah, I know, and I understand that, but I seem to have put my foot in my mouth at the meeting totally the opposite. The one thing I said was taken the opposite way, and so I'm just going to zip it for now.
Oh, I thought your comment was very good, Sue.
Well, thank you. I thought we were going to look at the history at some point. You look at it, you discuss it, and then you get to point B. But what I was being told is, no, we're already maybe at point F. And so I just kind of sat back a little bit and I said, okay, well, let's take this slow.
I think that was Ed. And he, I don't think he was responding necessarily directly to you, Sue. He was just making a point he wanted to make. He always has a point he wants to make.
And he is very well spoken, and no one has told me that in my whole life. So good for him. I agree with him.
So you know, it's really at the moment, it's really mostly we just want to give you a heads up that, you know, we did kind of take hold of a very neutral sort of position through the Confederate names report. And, you know, in this discussion that we just had about Fort Belvoir, in part because we lacked complete information, you know, we did, you know, again, sort of take a sort of neutral position where we're focusing on the history. It may be that we are not going to be able to continue to sort of thread that needle, as Barbara put it, and we might have to, you know, consider taking a position on this. So it's just something to think about, food for thought for next month. Elise.
I want to hop back to something that happened a few months ago that I don't know if everybody's aware of. But those of us who live in Hunter Mill District were asked by a reporter for Reston Now about the heritage of the name Fairfax.
Oh, yes.
So that may be on the table down the road as well. Not for discussion tonight, but on the table along with Belvoir.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up being the one that had to talk with him, which I did. I managed to not thread the needle. I managed to go all the way around, but that was my job that day.
All right. So thank you very much.
I was saying, here's a question that I just thought of. So in these instances that we're talking about right now, like we have a few members of the History Commission who are participating on a task force or in a meeting. And for those, of course, we have to have a group consensus on you know what we want to do, what we want to advocate for. But for instance, what if we're talking about something that is within, for instance, the Lee district, or you know, in a specific district, when a supervisor comes to them perhaps and asks for an opinion on this, can that individual give their opinion, as long as they're making it clear that it's not the History Commission's stance? You know, for instance, Sally Lyons was talking about, you know, how she would prefer that we retain, you know, the Belvoir name. You know, is it okay for her to clearly say that, as long as it's understood that it's not the History Commission's position? Is it okay for a History Commissioner to take a position on their own and make a statement about that, just to the supervisor or to an authority, not to a newspaper? I'm not talking about newspaper reporters. That's a totally different ball game. But you know, I haven't been on the commission long enough to really know how that works.
That has generally been our policy, and we usually state, like if we're sending a letter, that this is my personal opinion. You know, as a commissioner, not the commission's opinion.
Okay, so as a commissioner, it's your, you know, your evaluation, your position, but not representing the commission as a whole.
Well, the other thing you can also do, Tammy, I don't know if this is helpful, is just simply state that you are making your comments as a private citizen of Fairfax County.
Right.
And to just leave off the whole reference to the History Commission. I think that might keep it.
Yeah, okay.
A bit.
Well, I do think that individuals need to be sensitive to the fact that they are appointed by a supervisor.
Right. Sure.
And even though they may not make any reference to the commission, and they may be speaking only as a private citizen, it is, people know that you're the representative from that particular supervisory district. And so I think we need to exercise discretion and sensitivity on some of these matters.
Sure.
I think it's one thing if a supervisor reaches out specifically to a member of the commission,
oh, that's different.
He has appointed,
right,
to solicit a view back to that commissioner back to the supervisor from that particular individual. That's clear. If a member of the commission is to express their views on their own volition de novo without being asked by a supervisor, I think we just need to remember that there's this relationship out there.
Sure. Oh yeah.
That I'm a newcomer here as a representative of the city. So I really don't have standing relative to the county in a narrow sense, but this is just my observation from experience in dealing with supervisors on other matters that are not historic related.
Right. And I was more
History
thinking
related.
of conversations with a supervisor. That was really
Correct.
where my question was coming from.
Correct.
All right. All right, thank you. I think this has been a useful conversation. I think we've made a good start on these. And so we're going to circle back since Jordan has joined us to Soapstone Connector and the memorandum of agreement.
Okay, can everyone hear?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So thank you, and I'm going to have to probably jump off after this because we're as I mentioned to you, Cheryl, we're down at Cape May, a lot of folks in a house, and so not easy to stay on with what's going on here. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Soapstone because we have to get a response back by September 7th, and that's just around the corner. I don't know how many people have looked at the draft memo of agreement, but a couple of things that I noticed. One, I think that's very important, and that concerns the historical markers. I know that there have been comments about the length of the narrative and how the marker will be constructed. One of the issues that caught my eye was the funding of the marker, and there was some suggestion that the commission would be funding the marker. If that's not, and saying no, that's not the case.
I think with the kind of money that's involved in a project like this, it's one of the things the developers should do.
What we saw was a reference to using the commission's established policies for markers.
Okay.
Right,
So-
not funded.
Okay.
Not funded.
Not funded. Okay, so that good. That resolves that issue. The other was simply pointing out that they go through in the whereas clauses, they mention the public information meeting that was held and their dates that are given. And I suppose it's probably just immaterial at this point, but the last public information meeting that was held before the Association Drive was determined to be eligible for the National Register. So, that I think would make that particular aspect of this case questionable because it's important to involve the public. That's required under the regs. And if the public didn't have any information, if the public met and was not informed that the property was eligible, and at that point it wasn't, then do they need to, then was that whole process flawed? So those two are as I looked at the memo of agreement, and it's very detailed. I know John Burns has found some problems with the Historic American Landscape Survey and feels that that's not being done properly. He's the expert and he would know. That's not something I can evaluate, but certainly in terms of the involving the public and giving the public a legitimate issue to deal with, they did not know at the time that they were consulted as required under the regs that the Association Drive was eligible, and do we want to raise that issue?
So would we raise that issue?
I'm sorry.
Would we raise that issue in order to bring the public into the mitigation process?
Well, we would bring that issue. What I would do is I wouldn't raise it myself for reasons right now, but I would have the commission perhaps send a copy, would raise that issue certainly with the advisory council as an aspect of this case that was, that needs to be looked into.
What would be the objective?
Perhaps to involve the public, and because I don't know that many people know about this, what's going on in Reston. I'm not sure, Barbara, you would know better, but they certainly don't know that this area was determined to be eligible for the National Register, I would bet. And if they did, there might be some, some different opinions about this.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Cheryl?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I connected with the Reston Museum and sent them the MOA and talked and have been in touch and through the director with their board. They want to stay in the loop and they agree that we should push for more than a single marker, that we should have multiple or find another way, that the public history aspect of it. And I think that one of the proposals, Jordan, we were going to ask for either like a traveling exhibit or something that could be put like in libraries or other places in Reston. And I can identify narratives for three signs as a minimum. So if we can push to say we need to, the consultants or whoever we are want to have another meeting, and if Denise, I don't know, I'm assuming that we would have DPD would be interested in that as well, so that we could talk about a fuller description of and telling the story. It's not just, it's the buildings, it's the clustering, it's how they got there, why they got there, it's the use of the land. It's part of residential planned community, a whole new concept. There are lots of things that could be put into why these associations came together. Moved from New York, moved from different places and settled here and built the land and built the buildings and stuff, built the campus. So there's a lot of information there that's part of the history that I think is important history in the areas not only of local history but of urban planning and everything. So that would be my approach. And the new museum and the Reston Museum I thought was the appropriate public to go to within Reston. So that's what I did.
Barbara, would that be the way you envision this, would that be markers that were there at Association Drive, or would it be an exhibit there? What were you thinking?
Well, I think it's interesting that Denise reminded me, this case just deals with the road. The development around it and all of that is that's another whole issue. And whenever that happens, I assume that who's going to do that, there will be proffers and then we can deal there. But this is what we can fit into the lane, so to speak, so where the extension is. So for that, I just see if we can have multiple markers, and I'm not sure where, because this road is going over the toll road. So, Anne, if you'd speak up, you showed me something that you saw that's down by where Route 1.
Oh yeah, I'm always looking at, you guys, some of you will know it well, the big wall of aviation that's at the Costco on Route 1. That is a pretty amazing marker that Costco paid for. It's big. I have a whole bunch of pictures of it on my iPad if anybody wants to look at it. It felt, when I look at that wall of aviation, I think, wow, it's big. It's got like 6 panels. It tells it's architectural. It says, Bob Beach saw it. I have a picture of you there. It really makes a statement. And if we have an opportunity to encourage someone in Reston to make a statement about the an architectural, historical marker that's more than a regular old wayside marker. There's so much to this Association Drive. You flummoxed me there with saying this is only mitigating just the road, because we're about to lose the whole thing, right? So maybe everybody could get together and have some bigger, a small memorial patch of markers that I don't know. I just feel one little wayside marker for all of these buildings and how and what they meant to the vision of Reston seems inadequate. But then again, I like things like, I think there should be virtual reality tours of the site. I mean, there's just so much one could do if one were motivated.
Well, either perhaps Denise or somebody else can clarify what I understand, which is we can't, you know, the area that this is affecting, we don't have any leeway in the area that's going to be redeveloped as far as this is concerned. Those are, unless the developer says we're going to take care of that for you, or tell them they have to, because I don't think anything has everything was held up because of our efforts.
Yeah.
So there's nothing new as far as I know with regard to the actual development beyond the road. And so as I understand, we are dealing with the road, the right of way in this case. So somebody correct me that knows more than that if I'm wrong.
I was wondering the same thing, actually, because it seemed to me that a lot of the discussion of the mitigation, even by the developer, seemed to, and the attorneys for the other things. So I think there is this general anticipation of the overall redevelopment of the site. And so there seem to be, discussions along the entirety, but you're right, the Section 106 process is the connector.
Road.
So yeah, Denise would be helpful.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to jump in. I wanted to let you all, finish discussing, but I can tell you what DPD's comments are going to be. One, we concur with the idea that there is not, the public history element has not been sufficiently addressed. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise, and I'm not sure, it might help other people listening if we could all mute ourselves if you're not speaking. Yeah, there seems to be a light. Thank you. Thanks. So we are in agreement that there is not, the public history element of this mitigation is not sufficient. They've suggested that one interpretive marker would be the entire public history, interpretation, and we don't believe that that's adequate. They also didn't in any way address, as to Barbara's point, any kind of broader public history, like as was suggested in the consulting parties meeting with through either a traveling exhibit, library exhibit, or a web page that had might be similar to what was set up for the Commons for Charles Goodman's apartment complex that we're losing in Tyson's Corner. So that was a suggestion. I think somebody suggested perhaps an oral history project from people who worked there at one time. So there were a lot of really good creative suggestions that were just not picked up. And that's going to be our comment, that beyond the interpretive markers, which we do believe need to be expanded beyond just one, we also think that there ought to be a public history element to this, besides for the markers. And Barbara is correct that this does just deal with VDOT, a right-of-way, and VDOT, the soapstone connector itself. And that's what we're talking about, this project. However, because the Folger Pratt is one of the consulting parties, and they are the developer that's working to redevelop the entire site, we do see an opportunity to perhaps have FCDOT and FHWA partner with the developer, that at some point in the future, these three, I'm saying three, I'm just going to put out a number here, 3 markers be installed, funded through the project funds for the mitigation, but the developer would maybe have an easement that would allow them to install the markers on their property once redeveloped. So that's our suggestion, because there is not a whole lot of room in a VDOT right-of-way to put, interpretive panels. But, Ann's point about having something more creative, maybe a public art installation that's similar to the one at Costco. It doesn't have to look like that, but just in the sense that there's maybe a mural, maybe something beyond markers is possible.
Denise, I have a question.
Yes.
Who's going to pay for the measures?
Yeah,
Who's going to pay for the marker?
It's
Who's
part
going
of
to
the
pay for the surveys?
It's part of the project funding.
So does it essentially come from the county?
It's FHWA. It's an FHWA grant.
Okay.
For the soapstone connector.
Okay, so even though the county's responsible for getting it done, the county's not responsible for paying for it.
Well, it's part of the project, so I don't know. Let's see. It wouldn't be the History Commission if that's.
Oh, I know. It's just.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking in terms of the county as a whole.
So at most highway projects, aren't they like a matching sort of thing? There's a
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I would have to look into the funding of this particular project. I am not a FCDOT employee, I'm on the other side of things, but it would be part of the project budget.
Yeah, I think if I recall from the memo, Fairfax County is a signatory, isn't that correct? And if that means that they have an obligation to do something under the memorandum, and that would make sense that they are going to fund the marker. I'm sure that I wouldn't place any bets on the developer voluntarily funding anything more than the minimum. If you'll recall their comments from the consultation with the consulting parties. So, that would be highly likely unless they were forced to do it, and then they would probably grudgingly do that. But the important thing about that it's always been really about the FHWA project is that 106 handle. Without that, nothing would have been done on this, and that's why, along with the public history issue and putting proper proper memorialization, if you will, in the history of this important resource, I saw no problem. I don't think it's going to move the needle, but I thought it was worth making the point because a number of people that I've just chatted with in Reston know nothing about this, know nothing about that area being historic. And that would be the purpose of involving the public. And that was not done. I don't know where they are in their NEPA process, but that would be very important in terms of the National Environmental Policy Act process and the CEQ guidelines. So my reason for wanting to talk to you about this was to see if the commission would, I think we do want to respond. We do want to raise the issue of the markers, but would you be willing to consider raising the other issue of the inadequate involvement of the public in the consultation process for this particular undertaking?
I think it's Barbara. Are you? You're muted if you're trying to respond.
I'm sorry. Okay, this is a caveat to that. Shelley Maston, who is the woman that came to us and we provided the grant for her monograph on Fairfax County in 1960. All right, and she's the immediate past president of the Reston Museum, and she said that, which I had not realized, that they had gone at the beginning and worked through the Reston Planning and Zoning Group to see if they wouldn't push, and during the redevelopment, this is of the entire area, for like one building saved, or some having a like a little visitor's place, something like that, and the rest in zoning turned it down. Now, Bob Simon's widow, Alice Tetro Simon, who we got involved in this early on, went to there was a public meeting in Reston, and she was very discouraged because the people were speaking to what the need is for, which is the road to go through. So the Reston Museum, people that are interested in this, that's where you go. But Reston as a whole, this is not that, the majority of the people weren't here then. And so we're trying to, just like Ann's trying to maintain certain things in Vienna, we are all doing it in where we live in the county. And so it would be nice, but I don't think it would be worth to me, it's more important that we find a way to preserve the record and the story and put that out there. So that's just, we could try it, but I don't know that the response would be a one in our favor, because the needs for the road are so great, and I realize it's going to happen, but that's where the interest is. So
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, we could certainly use it as to bolster the argument that real public outreach is necessary in this case, that it isn't sufficient to simply have just a marker, that supporting a program administered by Reston Museum, or something like that, to do some real public history is important in this case, because that public element got left out, in that specific context.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what Barbara, where this thing will end up. As I said, I don't know that it's going to move the needle. On the other hand, what do you lose by raising that issue?
Maybe you can come out, Jordan, and give, the Reston Museum puts on programs once a month or so, and they've not been in person. So we could propose that they have a program that deals with this. So I don't know what John Burns would think. He would be great to talk about it. And Chris Daniel could. He's a Restonian. So that, I just thought of that.
We talk about the Association Drive now, or talk about the markers and that thing. Is that what you're?
I'm saying that they could come and tell the history of the campus, Association Drive.
Right.
And that would be, and that this is what we're trying to do to preserve it. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, this is a great place to do it, but.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. You raised the question about whether or not that there are other parts of this process.
There's another statute called the National Environmental Policy Act, which is kind of tracks. It usually is coordinated with 106, particularly the scoping process for NEPA is when they do a lot of their identification and evaluation under 106. And at the end, the NEPA process has to ensure that the 106 has been complied with. So that has to be done before, and then the record of decision includes the how they dealt with 106. There also is a third process, and that's the 4F. That's why they went through that exhaustive analysis a number of years ago. These are all pieces. As I say, this thing is really far down the line. It's unusual. It would be unusual to be able to change this juggernaut. On the other hand, for the record, I think that I personally feel that it would be worth making that case. So you've made that the record that people in the community did not know it during the public information phase, which is much more important in NEPA than it is in 106 in some respects. But in that process, which many times that's what satisfies the 106 process for public participation, nobody knew, because it hadn't happened, that the area was eligible. Once they hack away a building or two, it's all going to be demolished. There's no question about that. If this goes through, then of course, one building by building, and pretty soon there's nothing left. But I thought that it might be something to raise, if nothing else, then for the public record. Again, what's the downside? I'd be happy to put together that part of our comments, make that issue, and see where it goes. We're only a consulting party. We don't have much leverage. We never had much leverage as an invited consulting party as opposed to a signatory party. But hey, we've been part of the process, and I think it's worth making the case. And if I'll do the work, no one else has to be inconvenienced by this. So but can't do it, won't do it, obviously, unless there's the support of the commission and people feel that they want to include that in our comments.
Would this, Jordan, would this be part?
Anne has her, Barbara, let Anne speak and then go ahead. That's okay. Anne just had her hand up, so.
Go ahead, Anne.
Yeah,
She's
I hear
muted.
yourself.
She's muted.
Yeah.
Right on 123. It's so noisy here. I like what Jordan said, because a lot of our role in this particular project has been us saying, oh, wait, you have to do this right. This is how the process works. You know, we're lucky to have Jordan, who knows how the process works.
Right.
And can hold their feet to the fire. And I mean, it's in our interest for these processes. It's in the county's interest for these processes to work properly and to get the right amount of public input. It doesn't, and you know, it doesn't need a whole referendum from the area of Reston, but if enough people came forward, if there were a public meeting, there might be time to get some people together and say, you know, we do get the handwritings on the wall and this is gonna disappear, but it's an important thing to Reston, and we'd like it to be memorialized better than what we're seeing. Over.
Okay. Barbara, go ahead.
Well, is the issue here that we are urging another meeting, which was an option. And at that meeting, we would be bringing up what Jordan's talked about and about our an increased public history presence in whatever way we talk about. Is that right? Mm-hmm. That's the issue?
If we're successful and the council agrees and FHWA concurs that there was insufficient information, insufficient public participation in this undertaking, yes, then the way to resolve that would be a public information meeting. Well, I raised NEPA because it's possible that that might be the vehicle that they use, that might be the process that they employ. But who knows? It is a steep climb, to be sure. But yes, that's what would respond to that if that's the way. If that's what was the decision in this case.
But can we also, the way I read the MOA, and it's like reading a different language, as I understood it, then if the consulting parties, and if DPD is going to go and say we need, we want another meeting, then if we do that, that's an opening for the public history, regardless of how the advisory council responds, right? So we're dealing with two things.
Correct.
What we're talking about tonight is that the commission is urging that there be another meeting, and these are our two issues.
And we noticed that came out from the whereas clauses. One other thing I just want to share with you, that everyone I think has seen, or some of you have seen John Burns or the ARB's comments, right?
Yes.
Okay, along with that, he sent me a note the same day with a copy of that saying, next one on the chopping block is Isaac Newton Square.
Right.
Okay, so that's the next. I think that this may also raise the consciousness in Reston that parts of the important parts of the Reston plan are falling very, very quickly now, and might also help to sensitize the community to the importance of that as a resource. Just a thought.
Well, and if you recall, we had the developers for Isaac Newton came and met with us, and we made recommendations to them already.
I think to some extent that boat has sailed. Denise, you're the staff person, aren't you?
Yes, she is.
Yes, I am.
And hasn't essentially that boat sailed? I think John's warning about Isaac Newton Square being next is a little late, and he knows that that the History Commission's been briefed and things like that.
Right.
I sent John the phase 1 survey of the Isaac Newton Square development.
Mm-hmm.
We did get, again, interpretive art installations that will have, that will reflect the Isaac Newton history.
Right.
But to Jordan's point, it's gone. It's just, it hasn't been torn down, but it is essentially, it has been entitled to be redeveloped.
And the presentation, I took detailed notes on it when they presented to us because I was interested in what the developer said. We proposed, if you all recall, they hadn't named it yet. We proposed that perhaps they could name it Isaac Newton Village because it's going to be like a village, and they're saving the trees, and we wanted them to document the buildings that were there, etc. So we've done more for that than we did for Association Drive ahead of them.
Yeah.
Of it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the history of that. So all I knew was that letter. Okay. All right. So still there's that. So the question for the moment is whether or not to include this. If you, in our comments, which have to be delivered by email probably now by September 7th, if I recall correctly.
Yes, September 7th is the deadline.
Yeah.
Just one more point of clarification from Denise. Is DPD asking for a meeting? I mean, is that what would be the next step, an additional meeting of the consulting parties? Or are we just stipulating that that we're not real pleased with the idea of one marker, and, in terms of the outline, the draft agreement?
Sure. So at the end of the March consulting parties meeting, SHPO opened the door for a second meeting if there was not, well, depending on what the comments were from the consulting parties from the MOA, the draft MOA. So we have raised that suggestion if that's something that FHWA thinks is necessary, given the responses that they get back from all of the consulting parties. So we just brought it back around since SHPO opened the door.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. All right. So go ahead, David.
I just wanted to, as a footnote to this conversation, I was at Isaac Newton Square yesterday afternoon, and I walked through two of the buildings. There is a major tenant there that is considering relocating to the city of Fairfax, hence my presence. But we were told that the tenants must be out of the building by December 31, and that the raising of those structures will occur shortly after that. Just thought I'd let you know. And there are probably, at least as Jordan made reference, at least 30 magnificent oak trees that are at least 60 years old there. And so I think it's important that that there be some recognition of what was there for over half a century.
Well, unless they were they agreed, and they showed us the plans of how the way they're building so that the trees will survive, the way they put the pathways in, and that was a visual that they presented to us. So they plan to preserve the trees. And David, I don't know if you were with the commission when they did that. I'll have to look at my notes.
So
I think David had not joined us at that point.
Okay, so he's not aware of that. So I was.
No, I was unaware of that, but it was an interesting visit yesterday. More generically about the site.
Right. Oh, it's wonderful. And as I understand, the two newer buildings that are on Wheelie are they're not being taken down. It's behind that. And so, oh, I know, it's a special place. But the reason we moved here in '68 is my late husband took a position in a small company that was there. So, yep. But anyway, I think that to me, if you look at some of what some of the developers are doing, this one is at least a little more cognizant of the space than some of the others.
Correct.
That's a small little thing, but.
Yeah, one other question, a point of information, Denise. Have we seen the comments of the SHPO of Mark Homa, essentially, on the draft memo? Have we seen that?
We have not, Jordan. No, I haven't seen their comments yet.
Okay, all right, okay.
So if we make a motion, if we move, we are moving.
That in our response to the draft memo of agreement proposed by FHWA, that in addition to comments on the need for further recognition of the history of Association Drive through appropriate markers, that the issue of the sufficiency of public participation and notice to the community of this project be included in those comments.
There, I'll second that if somebody got it written down.
I can't write that fast. But I think
the thing is if we say public history, it doesn't just have to be markers.
Right.
Because the idea of a mural, since we're on a road, what if they put a mural on part of I guess you have to be able to look down onto the toll road, but it would be really great if there are other ways of doing it.
Yeah,
so
true, yeah.
Okay.
Should we ask our poor clerk if he got it?
Yes.
Could that be amended since he did say markers in the motion?
Okay, yes, I'll accept the amendment to public history.
Public history. I think that's good because as Ann was talking about, the Costco display is wonderful. It's not seen by as many people as I would like because it's not in a terribly well traversed place, but something that's larger and viewable from the road would be a nice addition. But yeah, so I think that's a great amendment.
Good.
All right. So Elliot, did you get that motion?
I got the last half of it. I apologize.
No apologies necessary.
No apologies needed.
So the first part was, in addition to appropriate memorialization of the public history of Association Drive. And then the second part that you got dealt with inclusion, the sufficiency of public participation in this undertaking.
And this is a motion regarding our response to the draft MOA.
The draft MOA, yes, correct. Thank you, Sharon.
Did I second it? I think I seconded it.
You
yes,
did, Barbara.
Barbara seconded.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's call this vote. All those in favor of responding to the draft MOA with a request for further public history and mention of the insufficiency of public participation earlier in the process. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. That was a difficult conversation to manage. So thank you, everybody, for.
Thank
Thank you,
Jordan,
so,
as usual. Thank you.
My pleasure, and my apologies for having to drop off now. But
Jordan.
Yeah.
This is Robert. I have a question for you.
Sure.
In any of this with Soapstone Connector, are we in a position to ask for any documentation of the buildings before they're torn down?
Yeah, we're going to have halves.
We are.
It's gonna be
All right,
HABs.
then, that's fine. Thank you.
And the,
Appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah, Bob, and the landscaping too under house, and that's what ARB stressed, that they have not properly, they haven't asked for sufficient HALS documentation, Historic American Landmark
Yeah, all right.
Landscape Survey, yeah.
A
Yeah.
level two for HABs, and they said level 3 for HARS, but now John says it should be a level 2. I learned what they meant from Denise. Thank you, Denise.
I Googled
Right.
them.
Right, and Cheryl, I will get you some language for that, okay?
Yes, so I was going to say, if you could address specifically that one paragraph about sufficiency.
Yes.
Barbara and/or Anne, if you wish to.
I'll be happy to, Cheryl. I'll send you.
Right, and I'll get it to you this weekend.
Okay, yeah, and then I'll just sort of synthesize it together into a single letter.
Okay, thank you all, and my apologies.
Thank you, George.
Hey, enjoy. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, okay, you bet.
All right,
Bye-bye.
yeah,
All
enjoy
right.
the beach.
Bye.
Thank you for taking a break from your vacation to participate.
Bye-bye.
All right. So now, if I was actually running this as a classroom, I would give you guys a break. But we proceed on to reports.
Cheryl, I'm sorry, please excuse me. It's very difficult to hear you when you're not looking directly at the, when you turn your head, there's a, great difficulty. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. If there was somebody within shouting distance, I'd get my headphones, but I'll try and just be mindful and speak towards the microphone.
Cheryl,
so
do you have any plan to bring up the National Trust Conference and membership?
I did not have that. Why don't you go ahead and mention it?
I kind of tossed it off to the executive committee. If we upgrade our membership by a cost of $55, $250, up to 10 members of the History Commission or related friends can attend the National Trust Electronic Conference this fall. It's the first week in November. The ARB, and Barbara's not here, so we don't have to worry about it. The ARB has already done this, and they did it last year, and I'm going on their dime. So I really have no fight in this, but I kind of thought that a number of you would want to know about it.
Yes.
Denise, did you say that we actually have that level of membership?
Yeah, I believe we do. I can double check though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That's why I didn't follow up, Elise. I'm sorry. It was because I thought.
Well, the ARB didn't, so I have a feeling we don't either. But anyway, it's $55.
Yeah.
Okay.
So $305, a maximum of $305, up to 10 members of the commission or friends of the commission can attend the National Trust Conference electronically this fall.
So yes, I can.
Okay, and that's as far as I'm going. Somebody else is going to have to make motions.
It's a good idea, but I've made all the motions. Somebody else make it.
This is Mary. I make a motion that we increase our membership to the National Trust to include the possibility of 10 members going to the virtual conference.
Can I give you an amendment for $250?
For $250, yes.
That's how much the conference would cost.
Okay.
Upgrading the membership is what's in question.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following you, but all right.
It will cost either $250 or it will cost $305, depending on what our membership level is.
All right. Okay, so I make a motion that we increase our membership to the National Trust for $305 for this coming year.
Second.
Does that cover it, Elise?
No, I think it's the fact that $250 of that dollars of it is going to pay for the National Trust Preservation Conference this fall.
So is the motion, is it that we should upgrade our membership by
$55
and pay
invest $250
For
for
a
up
total,
to 10 members to go to the conference this November.
for a total of 305.
Yes,
Is that right?
maximum cost.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I should have made the motion. It was,
That's all right.
Yes.
Mary,
You're the
Mary,
one who
was,
gets
Mary
it.
got it most of it.
I say what Elise said.
Second. Esther.
And Esther seconding. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
for the next move, I
And I'm sorry, I
recommend,
should have asked for a discussion, but go ahead.
next move, I recommend that Denise talk to Laura Arsenault, who has been through all this before. And she can handle getting the emails out to us, out to you all, so you can.
Oh, good.
Laura, really, Laura did it last year and she's already done it this year. So it's a process that goes through the finance office. And Laura's forged the way.
All right, awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Elise. And I'm sorry that, you know, as I said, I thought that we actually had this. And I didn't understand the separate structure of it, that there was the membership upgrade and then the conference fee in addition. So, all right. Staff reports, I think, is where we are next. Yes. All right, so Liz, you're up.
Sorry, I'm getting there. Just let me take 1 second. For the Archaeology and Collections branch, during the month of August, we have been working on several projects doing research, laboratory analysis, and report writing to get ourselves up to speed. So we'll be with vacations and things like that. You know, as we come into more of the fall season, we'll be doing more field work. We did do some archaeological clearance in the last week out at Eleanor C. Lawrence Park, where there's a series of benches that are being installed. Personally, I went out to Huntley Tenant House at Cheryl's invitation and got to meet with Dennis Pogue, who was out there. And I don't know if you saw the photograph I sent to you last night of the fireplace, but I knew I had it somewhere, and it, at least in that iteration, didn't look like a fireplace that they would have been doing any major cooking in. In any case, we have been, archaeology is continuing to conduct deaccessioning of from our archaeological collections over the years in the past. Other nearby jurisdictions did not have collections facilities, so we were kindly took in other people's collections, and now we're sending them back to their appropriate homes. So we've been continuing working with that, including some that are, we have had some things that have been returned to the Greek embassy, have been mailed to European countries, et cetera, et cetera. So we had some interesting, you know, interpretations of what was or wasn't Fairfax County. Other things we're working on, staff is developing a cemetery app where we'll be able to enter, there's a wide variety of data that exists on the different cemeteries within Fairfax County. And we're currently working on an app to basically have that information in one place. And also if somebody learns something additional or comes up with a new cemetery, it'll be something that we can add into the app. We've also been working with, sort of as part of our deaccessioning, and finding some of our, returning some of our gravestones back to their appropriate homes. When I arrived in 2003, there were, we had a number of gravestones that were stored at James Lee, and in 2 cases, one at the Summers Cemetery and one, the Fannie Wilcoxon stone, are going to be returned to the cemeteries, and staff has been working on that. Other things that we've been working on, we're continuing to develop public outreach content. Archaeology Month is coming up, and over the course of Archaeology Month, we will have about 10 different public outreach content things that will be going out and will be posted in various different places. The other thing, we would like to have archaeology and collections staff come to the History Commission meeting in October so that we can give you a presentation on how you know, your generous contributions to us have allowed us to acquire, and we still, you know, as we're now in the new fiscal year, we'll be continuing to acquire different different types of equipment. So, and how that's being used. So if we can be fit on the agenda for October, we would like that. We've also been working with various entities as far as historic markers, including a the replacement of one of the Civil War markers at Ox Hill that was taken out with a tree. So as a result of one of our storms. So we're doing a wide variety of things like that, and also dealing with kind of triage for projects like the damage that was done to a culvert at the Manassas Gap Railroad and things like that. So we continue to do that, do our countywide review and development plan review, report review, and other things like that. So that's a kind of a quick update of where we are right now.
Sounds good. Archaeology Month is October?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I should know that, but I'm bad with the months things. All right, sounds good. yes, I think that we will definitely fit you in on that. We'll put you on the agenda for next month. We look forward to
Thank you.
Seeing all your new toys. All right. Any comments or questions for Liz? All right, Megan.
Okay, so I am going to keep this sort of quick because I don't know about anyone else, but I did not get any sleep last night with those crazy storms.
Yeah.
So I've been assisting the Archaeology and Collections branch with restarting their environmental monitoring program at JLC, making sure that they have all the appropriate equipment so they can get back into doing that since COVID happened. It was a pretty quiet summer for me, sort of in museum collections, but things are starting to ramp up again now that camps and things have ended. And so I have tons of emails in the last week from all the sites wanting things. So I'm sure there's going to be more updates coming up here in the fall. The repair and maintenance work by AP Construction continues for Ashgrove's Brick Kitchen. 7 people attended the event at Stimson House, the HSVC event on August 14th. The next event has been scheduled for September. The location is to be determined. I think I'm supposed to hear about where it is tomorrow at our branch meeting. I think it might be Ashgrove. And hopefully they're going to fill that vacant LT position coming up here soon. I think they're conducting interviews this month. So those are my updates.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions or comments for Megan with regard to heritage conservation? Chris, tell us about what's going on in the Virginia room.
Also, like Megan, I would also like to go to sleep tonight. So there's a staff report. If you got any questions, shoot them at me. The two big stories are we're hiring a Virginia room admin assistant pretty soon. And I got to see Laura Arsenault earlier this week for the first time in 2 years, and that was a lot of fun. We went out to at the intersection of Burke Station Road and Main Street, or Little River Turnpike, or 236, or whatever road you want to call it. At the intersection there is a county facility that incredibly has been used for almost 100 years. It was built in 1927 as a road site camp, which was for the county men who were employed by the county to work on the road system. And there was a barracks there. And in the 1930s to the 1980s, the Fairfax County School Board used it for repairing buses. That's going to be torn down. So Laura and I got to go out there and check it out. And I don't know how it stood for all these years because it's rather dilapidated. And both of us had never noticed it before, even though you drive by that intersection all the time. It's kind of hidden back there. But so that was the highlights of the past month.
That's actually pretty interesting because I know that Lee Highway, they had road, prison groups, work groups coming out and working on that. Would that be the kind of place that they would have stayed, or these were different workers?
I think these are different workers because they were employed by the county.
By the county.
Other than that, I don't know.
I believe that the prisoners resided in the general vicinity of the Mount Trashmore former landfill.
All right. Any other questions for Chris? Very cool picture, by the way, of little Sully. Neat that those pictures got identified.
I'd never seen that. That's great.
That was a great find. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have to thank Gibran for that. And let's continue on. Denise, planning and development.
Hi. Looking for my report. I'll turn my camera on too, sorry. You can see me. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the highlights, and then I have a couple of updates to my report that was dropped in on into the share file on Friday. First is the History Commission bylaws were forwarded to the county attorney's office. We're now looking for a time to get on the Board of Supervisors schedule. I would say the earliest would be the second meeting in October, but I'll let you all know when that happens. There was an outstanding inquiry about the Civil War Trails marker. I forwarded that along to Cheryl, Mary Lipsy, and let me think of Gretchen, thank you. Yeah. For their sort of consumption and to think about, next steps. But we did get a response back, and I wanted to point that out. There's an outstanding question to the county attorney's office about awards committee, about a cash award to somebody that they're considering giving a cash award to. So I have not yet heard back from the county attorney, and again, just wanted to point that out. New items that were not in my staff report. One is the Jefferson School demolition. So that finally, they're finally going to actually tear down the school. It's I think the first schoolhouse in the Great Falls area, and Carol can certainly correct me if I'm wrong about that. There was a demolition permit pulled 2 years ago, and at that time, DPD staff, along with Chris Barbershak, went out and photographed the school, and luckily they did, because the owners
we were setting up a site visit to come photograph it this past weekend, and the owners declined to allow us on the property. So we do have photographs from 2019, and they did take photographs themselves. And I just got an email from her tonight, and she's going to pass those along to me. So that is an inventory site that we're going to lose in the Great Falls area. In your packet, for this meeting was a membership report that's issued by the clerk's office. So if you could please review that information for accuracy and send any changes that you wish to make to me. If you've changed addresses, if there's something, if you just notice something that's incorrect, please send those corrections to me, and I'll pass those that information along to the clerk's office, because that's actually the official record. And it's also a fun read because it has all past commissioners on there and their times that they serve. So I encourage you just to take a look at it anyway, because it's kind of fun to read. Another highlight that I'm sorry, I'm going to skip over new stuff now, but to go down to the Zellinger Family Trust, the proper condition amendment case that we were discussing last meeting, and we put that discussion on hold until Anne could join us for the discussion, because Anne, Chris, Heather Bollinger, and I worked very hard to produce a report that was circulated to the History Commission last month after our meeting. This is a little bungalow that was built approximately 1924 that is a what do I want to say? It's a landmark. You see it from the WNOD. It's been there for almost 100 years. It's been well taken care of. It's almost in absolute pristine condition from when it was originally built. They had come in originally wanting to demolish the house and subdivide the property. They since backed off demolishing, but they have not allowed us to add the language in the proffer saying that the house is historic, nor have they supported putting the house on an inventory of historic sites, which is, after doing the research, I think is an appropriate next step for this property. So that is my my report on the Zellinger house, and I would like, if Anne has anything to say about it, I yield the floor to her at this point.
So thanks, Denise. Yeah, you guys saw 2 times ago what a beautiful report Denise put together, and like we were talking about it earlier today, and there's so much more you could write about it. It's just it's quite a rich location and house and family history and so much. So we have a planning commission hearing before our next meeting. It's on the 22nd of this month, in 3 weeks. So I would love to have us write a letter, make Cheryl write a letter that says we support the staff report, the staff recommendations with respect to recommending that it go on the inventory, and recommend that it that they use the word because it's historic in their proffer. Is there anything else we wanted to say?
This is starting to sound like a motion.
Oh, it will be. Yeah. I'm sort of looking at faces in case there's anything else I should add. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that I work with Cheryl to write a letter to the Planning Commission, directed to whatever individual Denise advises us, chairman of the Planning Commission, I don't know, and CCing our supervisor. Oh, and we've been in touch with Hunter Mill supervisor, so his office is familiar with it. And that we write this letter and that we say these things that Denise and I have just described. Because as Denise always says, we don't have very many tools to save houses in this county, but this one had a proffer saying preserve the house. So let's try to make that continue to be a meaningful thing, to give a proffer like that. So that so my motion is that we write this letter to the Planning Commission to support the recommendations of the staff report. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All right, let's call the vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any objections? Hearing none, I think. I think that was just static.
I have a question,
There you go,
Herrick.
Carol. Okay.
You said you could, or Denise said you could see it from the W&OD trail. Roughly, whereabouts would that be?
Right at Clark Crossing Road.
Yep.
So, and you have to look quick because
Wait, at Clark Crossing Road?
Clark
Yes.
Crossing.
Okay.
So you have to look.
All right.
You have to look to the left over your right shoulder, and it's on. It was the entrance. The county has already caved on subdividing. That's probably not the right way to say it. I'm sorry. The county already seems to be content with the amendment that the developer wants to do to whereas the proffer said preserve the house in 1 acre. So they're already getting 2 new house lots that were not contemplated in 1982 or whenever George put the proffers on this. It really helps that I spoke to the guy that I spoke to the man who did the proffers, and his intent was so clear, even though he may not have used exactly the best tools for it. So yeah, so Carol, look for it. Once it starts to be under construction, we probably can't see it anymore because you'll put gigantic houses on either side. It's on either side, right, Denise? On either side of it.
Yeah, there'll be a house that blocks the view from the W&OD to the house, where the house currently sits. But you can see it from that parking lot. There's a parking lot and then a turnaround for fire trucks, sort of a cul-de-sac.
At Clark Crossing. All right, I'll go down and take a look. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
So if you go out Beulah, there's this really sharp turn to the right.
Yeah, I know where the thing is in the roundabout. So okay, I'll take a look.
Because it's a wonderful place. It's a little blast from the past, and there's a couple of cemeteries, family cemeteries related to it right around there too.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Denise.
So
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
yeah, I assume that wasn't an objection and that the motion then passes.
I think so.
Just a question.
Okay.
So I do have one.
We turn back to Denise. Yes.
Sorry. Thank you. So the last thing in my report is that this month marks the conclusion of my 4th year with GPD and as staff liaison to the History Commission. Beginning in October, I will be taking the ARB administrator, CLG coordinator position. So although my position is not staff to the History Commission, working with you all has been hands down the most enjoyable part of my job. In my tenure as History Commission liaison, my position was reclassified from a Planner 2 to a Planner 3, and the History Commission should be in competent and capable hands, whoever my replacement is.
then I anticipate a few month period of transition. So this will not be my last History Commission meeting. But I wanted to let you all know that we will be transitioning probably by the end of this year.
Wow. Thank you, Denise. Your support of us has been excellent, patient, detailed, complete, and we will miss you. I cannot believe it's been 4 years. It seems like we've just had you for about 18 months, and that's not a diss. It's just as time goes by. But you really have been wonderful, especially with all the WebEx orchestrating and that kind of thing. So thank you so
Lynn.
much. I'm happy we're going to get to say an official goodbye to you in a couple of months.
Thanks very much, Lynn.
I can say is we were very fortunate, Denise, to have you through the entire Confederate names inventory challenge.
Yes.
Oh,
And bless
amen.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Mhm.
And if such comes up again, we'll request your help.
We know where you live.
We will insist they hire a contractor.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, thank you all. Really, I mean that sincerely. The History Commission is really the most fun that I have at my job, and working with you all, it's so enjoyable. It's such a delight, and I so appreciate everything that you do for the county and the county history. So
You're welcome to come to all our meetings, Denise.
Yes,
Often.
and that's because we are a delightful cast of characters, right, guys?
And we keep everything going.
That's true.
You do.
Denise will be, at the ARB, so she'll be within reach, and we will probably be reaching out to her, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to work with the ARB, and thus continue to work with Denise. And I just personally thank you so much, Denise, for everything you've done, helping me to function as chair this past year has been invaluable, and also you're just really a delight to work with. So thank you.
Oh, thank you all.
And patient is a really good word too. Very patient.
We get to say more kind remarks because this isn't your last meeting. But I just want to remember too that it's not just WebEx, it's everything about COVID has been hard.
Yes.
And it has made poor Denise not only attend every single meeting that we ever have, which has added 1 million hours onto your year's tally. And I am so sorry you don't get overtime because you'd have done so well. But also just the way you dove into dealing with COVID with us. Do you remember we missed one meeting? Is that possible that we then just started having? I feel like I'm remembering that right, and we couldn't have done that without you.
Yeah, a conference call to start.
We had those 2 conference calls, so you could, I won't say what I'm about to say, but some of you know what I'm about to say. But it was, conference calls are laughable with 30 people, but we did it. And Denise, you just made so many things possible. And the real thing that I always appreciate is how nothing falls through the cracks with Denise, because you just are on. I don't know how you do it. I want to come and watch you work someday, because left to my own devices, everything falls through the cracks. And you've just got such a way of getting the job done in this. Somehow it looks easy and professional. So kudos to you, and we'll write more speeches for next time.
Oh, thank you all.
I'm hoping that we actually have an in-person Christmas potluck that she can come visit us.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So nice. Fingers crossed.
Right.
All right. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to Lynn. I suppose you're going to skip the history conference report and go straight to awards?
No,
or
I have a little tiny piece for that. But I do also want to say, just noting what time some of those emails come out from Denise, My observation is Denise does not sleep. So, I mean, really, 6:30 in the, wow, it's pretty amazing. Okay, history conference, really the only thing I have to say is history conference members, we will be meeting the 30th of September. And so Denise, at least for right now, I think we need to do WebEx, just plan for WebEx on that. A couple of tiny updates in terms of the conference. Rose Poetin has agreed to do a land acknowledgement at the beginning of the conference. And conference committee, we can talk about this more at the end of the month, but I didn't want to blindside you here too much. And also just kind of a little tiny review of the names of the tribes and their interaction with each other that populated Fairfax County. So there's that. Trying to think if there's anything else about the conference. I think that's really it for right now. We are, we have our save the date, which is now probably going to be ready to get out by the end of the month. So I'll try to send you all some emails, although the last 2 weeks of September, pretty much I'm going to be out of pocket. But we're waiting to see what any kind of regulations we may have in terms of COVID restrictions at the conference. So we need to know that. So David, if you're still on from the city of Fairfax, would need that from you. And then Denise, also any changes that the county might have. Okay. All right. So there we go with that. And all right. So I mentioned the 30th of September. Quickly, in terms of awards, Denise has already touched on the fact that we don't have a piece of information back yet from our county attorney to see if there's any conflict of interest in presenting a monetary award to Fairfax County public teachers. We do have a written addition. The awards committee unanimously agreed on this following sentence because several people this year might have gotten the Mary Farringer Award, except we have that rule about being.
Lynn?
Yes,
Did
yes.
you write email about revising the language a slightly less cumbersome way? I sent it right after the meeting.
Oh, I probably did, but it's not in my little packet right here. So anyway.
My suggestion is much simpler.
Okay, so anyway, just know that we've talked about this, and honestly, Elise, I don't think there's really anything we can vote on tonight until we know what the county has to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we do want to make it all right for our school teachers, whoever they are, public or private schools, that they've done a lot of extra work above and beyond to be eligible for the Mary Farringer Award. All right. And so until we hear back, I don't think awards committee, we need to be scheduling any more meetings. We will have 2 distinguished service awards this year at the conference. Okay. Is that it? What's that?
We need to vote on them.
We need to vote on what?
The History Commission needs to vote on the Distinguished Service Awards.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So okay, I was going to do that in October, but that's okay. So we've got 2 distinguished service awards, one to Jeff Clark for his voluminous body of work in researching and identifying the significant history of the Fairfax County Public School System, and to Maura Keeney, along with her students, for researching and writing the history of Ona Judge, the runaway slave from Mount Vernon. So those are 2.
I move that we accept the 2 nominations that Lynn just read, which were unanimously agreed to by the awards committee, which I believe doesn't require a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Can we discuss just one thing, Lynn?
Yes.
As far as I know, the students do not write the text for those markers.
What was your comment again, Mary?
As far as I know, the students do not write the text for the markers. They submit suggestions of people.
Okay.
So the award is really based on Ms. Keeney's accomplishments, shepherding the process through.
Right.
So I think that it's still appropriate.
Well, it says her statement was for the research and writing.
Well, then we'll just amend what she said, but that's not the intent of the award.
Right. Oh, I understand.
I think we could leave it as researching and just take out the
Oh,
writing.
yes.
Writing might
Yeah.
imply the final draft or the final product.
Right.
So
Yes.
I'll just recommend that we take that out.
We might want to work the elementary school's name in.
Say that again, Elise.
We might want to work the elementary school's name into it.
Do we
And
want to do we need to do this? I can put that in the award. Do we need to do that tonight? I mean,
No,
I'm conscious that it's 10 o'clock and we got a ways to go.
no, I agree. We should just go ahead and Cheryl should I call the question, Cheryl.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Jeff Clark and Maura Keeney will receive Distinguished Service Awards. The awards committee will work out the details of exactly the wording
Perfect.
for the awards.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl.
Anything further with regard to your report?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Anything else, guys? Elise, I think that's it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I just double check who made the second to the motion?
Oh, Mary Lipsy.
Well, we
Thank you,
didn't
Mary.
need to second it because it was unanimously approved by the committee. Someone needs to remind us of that every month.
Yeah, at least didn't, it was a little muffled when you said that, at least, so it wasn't clear whether or not, you were saying it needed a second or did not need a second, so.
We had a parliamentarian with us, and she once insisted that if the committee approved it, the motion did not need a second,
Yeah, I think that is correct, yeah.
which is what I said before Mary seconded it.
So you flip a coin, Elliot, and decide whichever one you want. All right, moving on to African American history inventory. Phyllis.
Okay. In the interest of time, I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. And actually, I'm only going to highlight one thing, and that's the main thing. At our meeting, Commissioner Kovacs-Schumann and her husband explained to us about using the capstone program at George Mason University to build our database that we would need for our information. And so there was some discussion, and we did agree to, well, Mary and I, Commissioner Lipsy and I agreed to meet with the professor who heads up the capstone program. And so I'm going to let Mary talk about what that meeting, what we accomplished at that meeting.
I'm going to do a quick cliff notes on this. They are seniors who are in an applied information technology course within the engineering department. It's a year-long course. First semester, they work at, as he called them, their clients, that they plan and develop the project with deliverables. This is all under the supervision of George Mason. They set up the teams and they do checkpoints with them. We also, I assume Phyllis and I will meet with them throughout first semester to see how they are interpreting what we're asking of them. The important things to know is that this is absolutely no cost to the History Commission. This is course credit for them or the county. There's no cost to either one. They also know that they would have to work within our system, the Fairfax County websites, et cetera, to put anything up there. They will also establish some type of storage space for when we are ready, we can start putting our templates in there. Our input to them will need to be delivered by December. And that, of course, would be before their vacation begins, which I imagine is the middle of December. We asked if they would be able to provide a demonstration of their deliverable to the History Commission, they said yes. And they will create the project such that the history and the county webmaster will be able to maintain it in the future as they go off into their employment, wherever that might be.
Hopefully.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, that was an aside, hopefully.
Oh, okay.
Having a child in that course right now, hopefully.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Sounds
Go ahead.
amazing. It sounds amazing. It sounds like a wonderful marriage of interests and abilities and need. Fabulous.
The students would work approximately 150 hours to make this happen. And if we were doing this in the regular business world, corporate world, that 150 hours would be $300 per hour. So we're getting a fabulous product at incredible cost.
And I asked if they would be talking computer speak or ordinary English language with us. He said they learned very quickly that as working with clients in the real world, they've got to be able to communicate, what they are working on, and that, we certainly will have input and reaction, to what they do.
Wow.
And we thank Sue for coming up with this and getting us connected.
Absolutely.
And her husband for helping out.
I just hope it works. Yeah, and he'll do what he can. I mean, if this works, this is great because the students are getting really good life experience too, working for a government entity, a county, and in the humanities, which they don't normally get. Thank you both.
Well, he also said that he tends to try and look at, he makes the matches of the team. It's 5 on a team, and looks at what they're interested in. And he says he's hoping that he really can find somebody who would be interested in this subject,
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So we're asking for the History Commission to support us as a go-ahead on this.
Oh, so you want a motion?
I don't know. Does that take a motion or just say?
I wouldn't.
Just that you're all okay with it and we move on.
I think maybe a motion might not be a bad idea, Mary. I don't know. What do you think?
I really don't know.
It makes it a little bit more official. That's all I'm thinking.
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion that the African American History Inventory Committee work with Capstone at George Mason University seniors to create an interactive deliverable from the inventory for a website.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just have a question. So when you said the word interactive, does that refer to the quote unquote web database that we've been talking about?
It will be what the students can come up with. I mean, it could be a story map. It could be, we haven't sat down with them. It could be a spreadsheet. We don't know, but it will be interactive in terms of searchable.
Well, searchable's not necessarily interactive. I know what Susie
That's true. You're right.
Right.
And a website is not a story map. They're very different things. So maybe we should say a database for the inventory instead.
Right. The AHI has been talking about a searchable database to upload this information on. So my question is, will this meet that requirement? I'm a little unclear. Or are we going to be redundant in creating 2 applications?
Stevie, I think maybe Mary, we should say a searchable database.
Okay, so that means it meets our our.
Okay, that's basically my, see, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to tech, okay? So to me, interactive means searchable.
And
That's what it
I
means
think
to
for
me.
the purposes
Okay.
of this course,
This is excellent news. This is very good. It's outstanding.
Yeah, I think for the
They,
purposes.
they will actually look at
Go ahead.
several ways that we would be able to accomplish what we're looking at. And they will tell us what those 3 different ways are, and then we would decide.
So it may not be a
They'll be
database.
working with us constantly throughout the program.
Should we just amend that to say to create an inventory or something more generic?
A deliverable.
Yeah, something like that. That's governmentese and contractorese, but that's what it'll be.
Right.
I'm thinking of the presentation that was made last month on Denise. What did we call
the GIS layering?
Yes. Who was also using AHI data for their application. So how would these two marry or not? The same data they're going to use.
So
no, if I may chime in, the database that you saw the presentation of was the Inventory of Historic Sites.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Still learning.
That GIS thing is very different from what we're asking for. I mean, that's
what we're talking
another level of things.
That's okay. You only learn when you ask questions. Not a problem, Subi.
All right. So we have a motion for the AAHI committee to continue working with George Mason as part of their capstone program to develop a deliverable for to
use the inventory of the.
For the inventory.
Using the inventory, yeah, good. Using the African American history inventory. Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. We have a second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions or objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right. So there you go. You have the official endorsement of, sorry, I'm looking away and talking. You have the official endorsement of the commission to continue with the capstone course.
And we'll talk with them tomorrow.
All right. Okay, so semi-quincentennial, Gretchen, anything to report?
Gretchen had to leave. Denise said, she sent the report to Denise.
Yeah, and it basically goes over what I summarized last time. So the board has funded the semi-quincentennial county work group, and they're going to be creating a larger expanded commission, which will last until 2027. And I believe the funding was $20,000, but it's essentially the same thing that we talked about last time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Denise, for delivering that. Inventory, Elise. Elise, are you still with us?
I'm trying to get my video to start.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
it
why I was
doesn't
asking
seem
if
to,
you were still
it doesn't seem to want to start. I'm not going to take up a lot of time. The inventory committee has a couple issues that are outstanding, and I think we'll probably meet toward the end of the month, early next month. Going on next, the budget. The budget request for this year is to be made at the same level as, there we are, is to be made at the same level as our current approved budget for the current fiscal year. And that's $26,000, $26,022. So I move that the History Commission make a budget request in the amount of $26,022 for FY, whatever it is,
It'll be FY 22.
22.
Okay, anyone wish to second that?
I will.
Is that Barbara?
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Any,
What we did last year was, after finding out how much detail the ARB puts in their budget request, I submitted a truncated budget request that just said how much we took in and spent, which is what I'm going to do this year. In October, I would like to address some budgeting. We also need to have a financial review / audit. So there's some things that need to get scheduled, but I am swamped for most of the rest of September. So I just want to put that out there. And annual report, nothing.
oh, okay, annual report, yeah. All right, but we had, so we have to have a motion. There was a motion, right, that you made, Elise? And so Barbara seconded. Let's call the vote on that. All those in favor of requesting $26,022 for fiscal year 22, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right. Markers, Mary.
One thing is that, we have requested the permission from VDOT to put the Pleasant Grove marker in. It has not been given to us. The latest thing I know is that it's in their stack of things to look at. So that is still on hold with VDOT. I did get the Civil War Trails questions and answers, and I'm going to be looking at that in the next week or so. And then Denise asked if we need to have a meeting about it. I need to read through it carefully, and it's a lot of information there. So I want to make sure that we do that. The last thing is that I need to discuss what I've learned about the cost of markers for the future. We currently on our website put that the cost of the markers are $2,700, but this is not with a raise in installation cost. From the foundry, it is $2,340. Installation is $895. That is a total of $3,235 for a marker. That installation fee is only guaranteed through January this coming year, 2022. The marker fee is guaranteed till May of 2022. If a marker like the Pleasant Grove goes on VDOT property, there's an additional $110 for a permit fee. So I'm wondering how to handle this. First of all, as Lisa is thinking about the budget there. One thing, the history marker contest sponsored by Supervisor Palachek will not cost anything for the History Commission. She has put a budget line for that in the county budget. And she is aware of the increase in History Commission markers. So I'm asking for advice as to maybe putting a range of cost in our website, or taking out the cost from the website and just giving an approximate. It could be approximately $3,500. That's what I need to ask.
Yeah, or up to $4,000, or
right.
Just a range, I think is a good idea.
Why do we have to put in the price at all?
I think for curiosity, people want to know ahead of time. If they, just depending upon, now it's not, Debbie Robeson did a wonderful PowerPoint presentation. She talks about wayside markers, etc. Those costs aren't in there, but since they are on the History Commission website, I feel like if we can give them a price range, it would help.
I hear you. Okay.
Because I think if we didn't have it, it's just the cost is going to be a barrier to people. You know, if we don't talk about it, then maybe they'll think we'll pay for it. Uh-oh. We'll pay some.
Right.
So do I need to make a motion, or should we? I would like to move that we put current cost estimated cost, let's say it that way. I would like to move that estimated cost for a history commission marker could be as much as, I'm going to say, let's say $4,000.
I second that.
The most it would be right now is if they don't raise any of them raise their prices, which I think they may, would be $33.45.
Okay.
That's the current, total. So no more than $4,000. How about that?
That's good.
I second the motion.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
I make a motion. I'm sorry, what?
That motion, your motion of up to $4,000 was actually seconded. I believe,
Okay.
Tammy and somebody else seconded.
So the motion is to amend the website to say that, correct?
To amend the website. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, let's call the vote. All those in favor of saying that the estimated costs on the web, stating on the website that estimated costs for the markers could be as much as $4,000 or up to $4,000. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any abstentions or opposition? Hearing none, motion passes.
Aye.
All right.
One thing that we also discussed is as part of an advocacy that we might put out a flyer or a brochure or something like that that talks about our History Commission marker program that could possibly be put on into libraries or supervisors' offices or whatever. So I'm wondering if the advocacy committee would like to discuss that in the future, if they agree that it's a good idea. I don't know what the funding would be for that either.
Okay.
Good. We'll put it on the agenda. Thanks, Mary.
Okay. All right.
Cemetery preservation?
Quickly, things have been really busy. I have a cemetery I'm working with where the owner has denied a scout permission to do a cleanup there, and we're still working on that. I'm working a lot with the Germantown Cemetery. I did find that a trusteeship had been set up, and so the question we're working with is whether a 501c3 and a trusteeship for a cemetery can operate at the same time. And I'm also sent, Susan Gray helped me send a request of the Fairfax City attorney when the Code of Virginia says that the cemetery is conveyed to the trusteeship. I didn't know if that means owns. That was the question that came up. Does the trusteeship actually own the property? So we're
Mary,
answer to that. Yes.
Mary, I'll look at the paperwork for Historic Vienna because we inherited or were given the deed to West End Cemetery, and I believe we're the trustees. So I'm thinking I'll just have to look at the file and see what that structure is. We got it in the 80s because they the trustee couldn't find anyone to take over.
Okay. It's not really a cemetery, but it is a memorial to 6 Fort Belvoir soldiers that lost their lives in community service in a nearby park on Braddock Road. We do have an Eagle Scout project working there. and he's going to create an interpretive marker for us. I'm working with the Neal Cemetery on Sutton Road with the developer to try and get a marker there. And finally, Anne pointed out to me on Saturday's Washington Post, there was a nice long article about inmates working on the Riverview Cemetery in Maryland, cleaning gravestones and actually fixing them, etc. My antenna went up when I read about them using wire brushes to clean the markers, which is a great no-no. So I wrote a short and sweet letter email to the author of the article, and I got a short and sweet thank you for sharing, basically, is what she said. But in the process, there was always something good that comes out of this. I found a wonderful website, Cemetery Conservators for United Standards. It is absolutely fantastic. It's a combination nonprofit group of professionals and volunteers. And I'm going to send it to Amy Wells because I want to say, Amy, they're telling us to do it exactly as you do in terms of how to clean it. And it even spells out what kind of brushes to use and what not kind of brushes to use, what kind of cleaning materials to use. It's absolutely wonderful. And I will send it to anybody who wants, or you can just, again, it's Cemetery Conservators for United Standards. And that's it for me, for cemetery preservation.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mary. Ethnic and oral history, Esther.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To keep this brief, because I know everybody is ready to yawn, we had 2 interviews on August 25th. Commissioner Lynn Garvey Hodge and Commissioner Ann Barnes conducted those, and we were so appreciative of them because Kate Henley was one, and then the other was a guy I have been trying to get in since the beginning, Dana Kaufman. So that worked out very well. The plan is, I was talking with Pam at Channel 16 just yesterday, and the plan is that she will work on refining those or whatever she does. And then we will have another group, if we can locate the supervisors, retired supervisors, for the end of the year, which is October, November, and December timeframe. So she'll let me know when the dates of our interviews can happen. I did turn in my report, so you can refer to it. There is really nothing new except that we plan to do a work plan so that we have our goals clearly set before us and we can measure our success, because it's going to be a success for the projects that we have on the books. So our next meeting is September 21st, which is a Tuesday at 7 p.m. And we'd like to use WebEx. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Esther. You said you sent a written version of this? I don't know that I received it. If you could just resend that to me, I can post it on the share file.
Okay. I sent it to Elliot, so I assumed it got in. All right. I will.
Oh, well, I did not. Well, Elliot may have it to include in the minutes. That's good then. All right. Resident Curator Program, Bob Beach. Oh, is Bob left?
I don't have anything to report, so thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry,
Right, thank you.
I was looking for your image and I didn't realize you had your phone in.
Yeah, my computer. I'm working 2 computers, and sometimes it works on the one that gives the camera, and sometimes it does not. So that's why I'm calling in. No camera, no mic. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anne, I don't think Anne ever did join us. So we have, and Denise actually has updated our bylaws status with regard to the revised bylaws, that they're going through the process, and hopefully will perhaps be in front of the Board of Supervisors in October. Advocacy, Anne.
Advocacy. Well, you guys got excruciating detail of our meeting. There'll be a quiz later. You know, the most fun we had was just, as always, we always start off our meeting saying, now, what's advocacy again? And how is it different from public relations? And what should this group be doing? And of course, PR is a more broad and more reporting what we've done. And advocacy is more trying to affect change. So we are inviting our fearless leader, Cheryl, to the next meeting, which we will be scheduling. She's given me, you guys, she's given me a bunch of dates, so I'll send them to the committee and we'll see when the most of us can come. And we're going to pick Cheryl's brains about and brainstorm what our priorities are. You know, what kinds of things do we want to follow up more on the one property HODs? That Wellington's a good example. That tax advantaged rehab program that raised its head and disappeared into staff research, stuff on easements. Given what Denise told us today, maybe this is the opportunity to say, well, golly, instead of liaison, can you replace her with staff? Can we start getting some more? I mean, just imagine if we had officially had more of Denise's time. So anyway, so that's all we're going to do. We'll meet next and try to focus. We got lots of next steps, and I know you all read in detail, so we'll just continue the conversation. If anybody has any comments on our report and has any brilliant ideas, please let me know. I see Mary waving her hand around.
It just occurred to me that, you know, I asked about history marker information, award information could be put on, like, you know, a flip side.
Yeah.
What the awards are that we offer. The more we get out there, the more people will get involved maybe and nominate and stuff like that. So that's just an idea.
Yeah, because if you look at the one piece of paper that we've done in recent years about us, it's a little puff piece we did in time for the anniversary in 2017 that it kind of just follows the annual report and lists all our names, so it's obviously out of date too. And instead, it would be good to make a piece that says, how can the public, what can the public achieve by contacting us? What are things we can do? So yeah, thank you, Mary. I'm done.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, and thank you for all the detailed report. That's in writing. At least ARB liaison.
My ARB report got into the share file today, so it's there for you to read. If you checked earlier, it's there now. Please read it. If you have any questions, ask me.
Fairfax City, David.
The city of Fairfax will be conducting its historic markers contest in parallel with the county. Dahlia Palchek contacted me, and we are coordinating that to have a similar effort within the city of Fairfax to parallel the county effort. As you know, the city initiated last June this would have been actually it was in September of 2020, a review of street names, and we established a stakeholders engagement group. They are going to be providing recommendations to the city council this coming week to talk about with some suggestions on how to which street names to be changed, and a process to go forward with that. One of the big efforts will be to coordinate the main corridors of the city with any efforts by the county to change the name of Lee Jackson Memorial Highway, because as we all know, a portion of those roads pass through the city of Fairfax. So there's still the question of coordinating with the county as to whether or not we are going to do something where they would have the same name. To be determined. I reported on Old Town Hall, which was constructed in 1900, which is our iconic flagship architectural building in the city of Fairfax. And we are on the cusp of issuing an RFP for the restoration of the front of the building. It's approximately $600,000. Many of you may know John Milner, one of the architectural historians in Virginia. He has been working with us from the very beginning. We're very appreciative and confident that what he has recommended to us will hold the building in good stead for the next generation. Mary, I wanted to let you know that I was also contacted by by Dennis Howard's daughter about the Germantown Cemetery. I haven't responded to her because I knew that you were already involved in the issues of the 501c3 versus trusteeship, or whether they can work in tandem. But I will call you separately and discuss that with you. And also I'll engage Susan Gray with that as well. And the last thing I wanted to just share with you is a bit of esoterica. As you know, every municipality has to have this is a little morbid, but they have to have a place to bury indigent people. And the county of Fairfax has a burial ground at its property yard, which happens to be in the city of Fairfax. If you're traveling on Germantown Road towards Oakmar and you're about ready to cross over I-66 and leave the city, on the right-hand side is a considerable sized property yard owned by the county of Fairfax, even though it's in the city, as it was a legacy from the time when the city was a town. And on that property is a place, it's a cemetery actually, and it's still in active use by the county in those circumstances when it's necessary to bury someone who has no next of kin, no money, and it's done, I think, with respect and professionally managed. So I don't know if other members of the commission were aware of that, but that place does exist, and it's right there at that location. Mary, you may know something more about that.
Well, about a year ago, a person approached through our website asking about access to the cemetery on weekends. That maintenance yard is locked up. And this person has a relative there. He's from Peru. He wanted to know, well, could he remove the remains to Peru? I said, you'd have to go through Embassy and State Department. I couldn't help him on that. But Virginia state law says that, descendants should have access to cemeteries. So I never knew how to pursue that or do anything about it. And I understand they want for security reasons, to secure the area. But I really did feel his pain that he couldn't. He said, I work, all week. And he says, the only time I can get there is on weekends. Right. So I just share that with you.
I will follow up on that as well. I'll talk with the appropriate people. Okay. We'll see if we can't get some sort of an arrangement through the city and the county, right, with our police department and the county Department of Public Works.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
David, I have some other thoughts about that whole situation, but I'll talk to you offline about that. I can't exactly picture where it is, but it seems that's a good thing for all of us to know about.
And the city of Fairfax has a different approach. we happen to be the legal owners and we manage a city cemetery. And so in those rare instances where the circumstance might arise, the city manager has the discretion to make a decision for a free burial in the city cemetery. It's only happened in my 14 years of being an elected official. I think it's only happened once, but every municipality does have this arrangement by necessity. And I just wanted to share with you what the county's arrangement is. It just happens to be in the city limits of the city of Fairfax. Okay. That's all for the city of Fairfax. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was interesting and useful. All right, Subi, thank you so much for your patience. Website.
Okay, no problem. Well, in the interest of time, last month I had reported that I had reviewed the website pretty thoroughly, I think. And then I had a chance to sit down with Cheryl in person to go over my questions and my observations. So we made some decisions about streamlining here and there, like consolidating the homepage with the About Us page, so that there's some redundancies that can be taken out. We would like, and I want to follow up with Lynn and the conference committee on this, pull out a conference, history conference out of the events page and make it its own page to give it more visibility. So we'll talk about that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then a question that I had raised was, with the bylaws, would we like to put it up on the website? And so with Cheryl's guidance, I looked up the ARB website and the Planning Commission website, and they both have their bylaws up. So I don't know how to proceed on this, Cheryl. I mean, do we need a motion, or should we just wait for the bylaws committee to get back to us? But I wanted to put it out there tonight. And then again, somewhat related to the bylaws, what is described in the bylaws as purpose, as our purpose statement, is described in the website as our mission statement. So for the sake of being consistent, which word should we adopt? Should we adopt purpose or should we adopt mission?
That comes from the ordinance that established us. And I'd like to take a look at it to see what language it uses.
Okay, okay. I did look at the ARB bylaws and the Planning Commission bylaws. Both of them use the word purpose.
And it may say purpose because they were written at different times by different people.
Okay.
And for different purposes. So let me look at to see what our charter says.
Okay.
And then we can go from there.
Excellent, Elise. So I'll look forward to hearing back from you on that.
Okay.
There's some old information, like cleaning up the names of the committee chairs and listing AAHI in the list of committees is missing for some reason. In terms of the annual reports on the website, we are missing 4 years, 2000, 2005, and of course the recent 2 years, 2019 and 2000. I just wanted to put it up there. These are my observations, especially for the older ones like 2000 and 2005. If anybody has any ideas how to unearth.
As the annual report person, I would also suggest you talk to Chris Barbershak. I believe there should be a 2000, and it's probably on my hard drive. Same place I'm going to be looking right after the meeting for the charter. The 2005 one was a problem. I never got an electronic copy that was final. And Barnes was responsible for it that year. And it's been kind of an issue since then. I may have a hard copy, but it's filed and it's filed away. Chris might have a hard copy at the Virginia room.
Okay, okay. That's excellent suggestion. I'll follow up with Chris on that. And I know that the most recent ones, 19 and 20, are works in progress. I'm going to follow up with Lynn, if you don't mind. Lynn, I'll set up a phone meeting with you on the awards program. I have a couple of questions on that. And Denise, I'll follow up with you on a document that had some inconsistent dates. It had 3 different dates. So I'll just check in with you to see if you could shed some lights on that. And we have the July minutes up on the web. That's my report.
All right, thank you.
Lots of work. Thank you for all the work.
Okay,
Yes.
you're welcome.
Yeah, it's a very in-depth and careful review of the website. Thank you.
Nicely done.
Do you want to keep working on these different things that you're going to follow up with, and then next month present a set of changes that the commission might approve?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, some minor changes, obviously, we don't really need to approve, or corrections of things like committee names, committee chair names. Those things don't require approval. I don't know about, if the commission feels that they need to approve things like placing the bylaws on there. So some of the larger ones might perhaps be reviewed by the commission.
I suspect staff would probably prefer that we put it up, since the planning commission's up and the ARB's up. So I think we should just go with the flow.
Okay, do we want to make a quick decision about that tonight, or do you wish to table that till?
Let's table it for a month.
Okay, all right.
And I think we could treat it almost like reviewing the budget, or like the treasurer's report. I think if Subi just proposes, here are 4 changes, and then we can just approve them en masse, or something like that.
Makes sense.
That would work.
Agree.
Sure.
Agree.
Fine. All right, that sounds like a very good plan. All right. That concludes our reports. Does anybody have any announcements you wish to share?
I have a tiny one. Okay, Mrs. Robert Walker, and this is at the request of Gretchen Bulova, appeared in Fulton, Alexandria last week at a marker dedication to honor the location of the Customs House, where the suffragists were released after having been brutally treated the Night of Terror. And she also appeared at the Occoquan Workhouse last Saturday to honor Women's Equality Day. And she'll be also be appearing at the Ripon Lodge the 9th of October, 4 times in one day, to talk about the reality of the women's suffrage movement.
Awesome.
Yep.
Jeff Clark is working on a video of the Gunston Colored School, and he is short on resources. Now we're going back and going into the archives at Gunston Hall, the Seeds of Independence, where I think we have some materials for him, and probably some videos. But if anyone has material on the Gunston Colored School that they would like to share with him, he would be most appreciative.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think
I'd like to suggest.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd like to suggest that we do a workshop on parliamentary procedure. As you know, I'm a little bit of a stickler on it, and that's because I've been accustomed to it most of my adult life. but there is someone with the county that's given that workshop before, and I attended several years ago. I don't recall the name, but
Is this about Robert's rules, Esther?
yes.
Oh, I know who she is. She goes to my church.
Okay, if
yeah.
you could share that name, I would think it would be beneficial for the whole commission to attend a workshop.
B. Squire. B. Squires is her name. So BEA.
So I'd like to suggest, Cheryl, that we look into that.
Certainly. Yeah, if you can share that information with me, Lynn, we'll investigate what is involved.
And if you don't hear from me for a while, just circle back because I've got a crazy month coming up here.
Okay. Okay, and also I can perhaps ask Denise or check whatever resources we have on the county.
Okay, yeah, and it was a long time ago.
Yeah, so
long time ago, probably 15 years ago. But B does, Beatrice is her name. She does a fabulous job. If anybody can make Robert's Rules enjoyable and fun with case studies, she is the lady you want to see.
Okay, sounds good.
Really good.
I had a quick announcement. I wanted to give Sally Lyons some kudos for our Mount Vernon Regional Historical Society program that we did at Gunston Hall on Sunday. And David Meyer was there. He knows how good it was. We had 45 people there and just had a fantastic talk by Scott Stroh. And that was all set up by Sally. It was phenomenal. It were great questions and we learned a lot. And we also got an update on what they're going to do for the East Yard, which was where their enslaved quarters were. And so they are going to take down the director's house, the current director's house, and renovate that area and really do some good interpretation there. So thank you, Sally. It was fantastic.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sorry I missed that. I was thinking about going.
Yeah, it's really good.
Where's the director going to go?
Good question. Where's he going to live? Are they going to give him a pup tent?
I think he said that the board is going to construct a new home on the site at some other place, but.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Undertaking. Anybody else have any further announcements? All right. So Esther, as our parliamentarian, do we have to make a motion to adjourn, or can we just adjourn directly?
You can adjourn directly.
That's why you have a gavel. That's why you have a gavel.
We are in agreement.
If there are no objections, I declare our meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for staying up with us this late. Enjoy the rest of your evening, the 15 minutes